Probably the most popular video that I uploaded to my channel in the past year was the video where I talked about why you should never purify Shadow Mewtwo. To my surprise, it seems that a vast majority of players still believe purifying Mewtwo is better than keeping it Shadow. I'll admit, I think I did a poor job in that video giving evidence that Shadow Mewtwo is actually better than a regular Mewtwo. Thus, consider this the long-awaited follow-up video where I actually show gameplay comparisons between Shadow Mewtwo and a regular Mewtwo. I seriously hope this settles the debate once and for all. Anyway, let's roll the intro and get right into it. How's it going, everyone? It's me, it's Count, and in today's video, I will be comparing Shadow Mewtwo to a regular Mewtwo through gameplay examples. This is something I really wish I did in my original video about Shadow Mewtwo, especially because the comments section of that video is just full of misinformation. I really hope you take everything you see in this video and make the right decisions regarding your own Shadow Mewtwo's. Now, when it comes to Shadow Mewtwo, the conversation seems to always be whether or not you should ever purify it. Some of the arguments that I've heard on why you should purify Shadow Mewtwo involve the false belief that the nerf to defense doesn't make up for the extra damage that Shadow Mewtwo deals. However, this is absolutely far from the truth. While Shadow Mewtwo does receive a 20% defense reduction, the 20% total increase of damage with its fast and charge moves just simply cannot be overstated. As I said in my previous video, Mewtwo already has a very hefty base defense stat, meaning a 20% reduction in defense is barely going to be noticeable. However, a 20% increase to Mewtwo's fast and charge attacks and not the attack stat itself will most certainly be a noticeable change. So with that said, I want to show you some gameplay comparisons so that you can see just how much stronger a Shadow Mewtwo is compared to a regular Mewtwo. First, let me show you what I'm using. Here, I have a Shadow Mewtwo with 14 attack, 15 defense, and 15 health as its IVs. I will also be using a regular Mewtwo with the same exact stats of 14 attack, 15 defense, and 15 health. Both will be powered up to the same level, both will have the exact same fast move, and I'll be running the same battle circumstances for both of them. For every battle, I will only be using the fast move so that you can see the overall damage output of each Mewtwo. Let's first take a look at this Team Go Rocket battle. As you can see by the side-by-side comparison, the Shadow Mewtwo is dealing significantly more damage compared to the regular Mewtwo. Also, you should see that, in terms of receiving damage, yes, the Shadow Mewtwo is getting hit just a little bit harder than the regular Mewtwo, but the overall damage received is minimally different. By comparison, the Shadow Mewtwo is dealing much higher damage than it is receiving from the Shadow opponent. So when it comes to Team Go Rocket battles, Shadow Mewtwo is the clear favorite to use. Next, let's do the same thing for gym battles. I went in against this gym defender with my Shadow Mewtwo to see how many attacks it took to take it down. And then I had a friend heal up that defender so that I could do the same with my regular Mewtwo. As you can see with the side-by-side comparison, the results are roughly the same with the Team Go Rocket battle that I showed earlier. I think the one key difference is the typing of the Pokemon. Since I'm not working with a type advantage, we can get a better grasp at how Shadow Mewtwo works as a neutral damage dealer. As you can see right here, the Shadow Mewtwo is dealing just a little bit more damage over time compared to the regular Mewtwo. You can even see that the Shadow Mewtwo defeated the Gym Defender in a shorter amount of time. Yet when it comes to how much damage both Mewtwo's are receiving, it is roughly the same. Of course, if I were to go against a fighting type or poison type or any other gym defender that is weak against psychic types, the difference in power will be much more noticeable. Yet even against a gym defender that only takes neutral damage, Shadow Mewtwo still seems to deal more damage than regular Mewtwo. As much as a regular Mewtwo is one of the top neutral damage dealers in the game, a Shadow Mewtwo will be that much more useful. It's not often you will need a Psychic type when attacking gyms or Team Go Rocket, but even so, Shadow Mewtwo will still be useful considering the high damage it deals, even without a type advantage. Okay, now that we've looked at gym battles, let's take a look at how Shadow Mewtwo and a regular Mewtwo compare in a raid battle. In this side-by-side comparison, pay close attention to the health of the raid boss. I'm going to let this play out until both Mewtwo's are knocked out. You can see that both Mewtwo's were knocked out in roughly the same amount of time. However, the Shadow Mewtwo dealt just a little bit more damage before it was knocked out. It may not exactly show how much more attack damage Shadow Mewtwo deals, but this does show that the defense reduction is not that noticeable. It still took Piloswine the same amount of charge attacks to take down both Mewtwo's, and they were knocked out in roughly the same time. Out of all of these scenarios, Shadow Mewtwo is clearly more powerful, while also not being as squishy as players make it out to be. I honestly think players vastly underestimate Shadow Mewtwo's attack potential, while also overestimating the defense reduction. I mean, sure, there are added benefits to purifying a Shadow Pokemon aside from just combat effectiveness. It gets 2 IV points to every single stat, it gets leveled up to level 25, and the Stardust cost to power it up gets discounted by a good amount. Also, I totally recognize that powering up a Shadow Mewtwo costs a ridiculous amount of Stardust and candy, since there is an added cost to powering up a Shadow Pokemon. I mean, for myself, it took me well over 2 months of grinding in order to get enough Stardust and rare candy to get my Shadow Mewtwo to level 40 with a second charge move. I can understand that other players, especially those who are casual, would not want to spend the time and energy grinding that much for one Pokemon. I can totally understand that these factors could entice a player to purify a Shadow Mewtwo. However, I still strongly advise against this because when you purify a Shadow Mewtwo, you are only making it a regular Mewtwo that you could easily get from a raid battle, special research, or trade from another player. If you're strictly thinking IVs, I guarantee you that you could find a regular Mewtwo with equal or better IVs from raids whenever it is out. You might as well keep your Shadow Mewtwo and try to get a regular Mewtwo through raids later on rather than through purifying it. Don't forget that Shadow Mewtwo is completely unique. There's only one way to get this special Pokemon, and that is from battling Giovanni whenever it is the encounter reward. Players seem to think that a Shadow Mewtwo is something they can get as often as a regular Mewtwo. And sure, if that was the case, then I would honestly say it wouldn't be a bad idea to purify one. But unfortunately, that just simply is not the case, and you should never purify it because it is quite literally one of a kind, while regular Mewtwo's are ridiculously easy to get. Unless you want to get ridiculed by most players, know and understand that there is never a justifiable reason to purify Shadow Mewtwo. Simply just don't do it. Even for the reasons that I just listed, it's absolutely not worth it. Also, I really wish I put more emphasis on this in my original video, but when it comes to frustration, you need to realize that you can remove this move with regular charge TMs during certain events that happen every so often. That was actually one comment that I got pretty often in my original video, that players wanted to purify their Shadow Mewtwo's because they didn't know they could remove frustration through Team Go Rocket events. Seriously, don't purify your Mewtwo just to remove frustration. You can remove it off your Shadow Mewtwo later through in-game events. Just be patient, for crying out loud. Anyway, that's going to be it for this video. I seriously hope I convinced you not to purify your Shadow Mewtwo's. I know a lot of people want that immediate gratification, but this is one instance where if you are patient, you will be rewarded a substantial amount. And that reward this time around is one of the most powerful Pokemon currently in the game. but leave your thoughts in the comment section down below. I would love to keep this discussion around Shadow Mewtwo going, and yeah, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe if it's your first time here. I am Count Jinsula, be safe, have fun, and I'll catch you all later.